Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to Where and Ahead. My name is Greg Johnson, and I'm your host today. And I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind throughout today, and that has to do with building your frame as a man before you date. Now, there's kind of a couple different topics that I want to talk about today, but first of all, it has to be with where if you're wanting to get the results, if you're wanting to get real results that other men are wanting to have, or that you see, maybe like this is to younger people, so maybe you're 17, 18, 19, something like that, fresh out of high school, and you see a lot of people around you, maybe at your work or at your job, and you see how a lot of them are trying to date and how they date and how it's not working out for them, right? Or you see on how it seems like the current dating situation just really sucks, or it isn't worth it for men. And in some reality, that is true. That is the case. It's very much with dating apps and with all those other things is very much positioned, and it is on the better side for women to be able to eliminate men that they don't want to be with. And a way to do that, instead of just jumping into the game with no knowledge or jumping into any of that type of thing, what I would suggest is really you need to build your frame. You need to build your frame as a man. You need to do research. You need to, almost in some way, you need to go through your own like ritual, is what I would think of it as, or your own trial or your own something of that sort, to really figure out who you are as a man. Now, you don't need to have every detail figured out when you are dating, but it definitely helps as you go on and as things get further on in life. And from my dating experience, it's very interesting and very different. I did a lot of stuff with girls when I was in high school and things, but I didn't really date anyone until about 4 years ago now. Holy shit, it's already been that long. Weird. I've had about 2 official girlfriends though, and what I found throughout those relationships is that while they were really helpful in me looking back on them, learning my worth and learning how to be in my frame, I wasn't essentially in my frame, in my masculine frame, before I was into those datings. And I didn't really understand it. And when the interesting part about both of them is that you can see where I acted one way at the beginning of the relationship, and then when I started to step further into my masculinity, into my own beliefs, into having my own voice, they weren't used to that. They were used to more of a passive person. And I'm not a big guru on about dating or whatever, but I definitely do suggest the idea of building your frame, having an understanding of women, having an understanding of your values and where you lie and what type of woman you want to have, so then you can do the elimination process. And also just really figuring out yourself. And what I mean by going through some sort of ritual or some sort of like trial, right, is how men, when we used to live in tribes around the age of graduation, you could say maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, depending on where you were at, you had an initiation. And it's something that we really lack today in society for men to grow from, because that was the signifier of boyhood to manhood. And you need to find out what that looks like to you. I was blessed in some way, you could say, of having an experience where, because of certain events and because of the poor mental mind state I was in and wanting to commit suicide and stuff, I was actually put into a wilderness program. And I learned a lot from that place, but at the same time, I put a lot of it to the side. And it was a very traumatic event, and it was very like, it was my own fault for getting me there, but at the same time, the situation and how it was handled was not that great. And I I learned a lot, but then I didn't allow myself to remember that. So then I've had to kind of re-go through it. But having some way, maybe it is like an actual camping trip, maybe it is something, it depends on you, and you can do more research on this, but build a frame before you really start to date. And take the time to really learn and develop yourself, so that when you have the opportunity to date women. It's actually women that you want to date, and it's high valued women, and it's not just women that are on Instagram or that are on Tinder or whatever that swiped you right and liked you back, right? Because sometimes women definitely don't understand how lonely it is to be a man. And so what you need to do and what you need to understand is how to change that mindset of being so lonely. And that's very difficult. But instead, using your time and using your period of being alone to then be about what you want to be, so then you can attract what you want to. So, of course, you can have dating experience along the way, because some people will say, well, Greg, what about, I might be 30, 35 years old by the end of that. Then obviously take time and actually date in your 20s. But at the same time, I do believe that you should at least build a frame, build an understanding, have core values, have core beliefs, have these certain things, so that when you are starting to date, that you know what you want, you know what you're willing to tolerate, and you know what you aren't willing to tolerate. Because I didn't know that with dating, and I was very much that alone kid, so whatever bit I got, right, whatever little sliver of attention or affection or whatever that looked like, I really grasped onto it. And it's interesting to see how your perspective changes as you move on. One of the really great books that helped me out with this was Way of the Superior Man. I've read it about 4 or 5 times now, and I keep going back to it. I go back and listen to it on Audible, and there's so much in there. And I think it's a really great place to be able to start off if you're wanting to build more of a traditional masculine, real masculine energy, not playboy energy, not simp energy, not like blue pill, red pill, whatever you want to say. It's more of like a traditional red pill if you're wanting to put it into those categories. And it really helps with that. Other things that may help as well that you might not realize, because it isn't specific to dating, or it doesn't seem like it's specific to masculine energy, is books like Atomic Habits or skill-based books like Deep Work by Cal Newport, or Creativity Inc., which is what I'm reading right now about Pixar and stuff. And the reason I bring up those types of books and ones that I have is because they help you build the skills that you want to build as a man anyways. And so when you build skills that you want to be, you make yourself more desirable, but at the same time, those also build your frame, and they build a new level of thinking, they build different mindsets, they do a lot in the case of how you grow as an individual with your perspective on life. My perspective 4 years ago was very, very different, and even my perspective 1 year ago was very different. And just reading books like that, really reading, truly read, take time to do that, or like even going to the gym, like do skills that build discipline, and do them consistently and keep consistency with that. That's what I would say are really helpful traits with that. Now, I mean, I just got out of a relationship, right? So I've been in a very interesting place, but I've had a lot of time to think about it as well. And I've had a lot of time to think about it through the relationship and through both of my relationships. And I know that the next relationship I'm in, I'm not going to jump into it out of desperation or out of loneliness or out of kind of the things that younger men do typically go into a relationship for, because you think this is the only pretty girl that you can get, when in reality, even if you aren't the best looking guy, if you put in the skills and if you put in the work and you put in the work to specifically building your frame, you'll get it. And there's a plethora, there's countless, like you can't even think about it. And even if 99% of the world didn't like you or didn't find you attractive, there's like still, 78 million people still would or something. So it's very interesting, and I just hope that this message resonates with you guys and helps you out. And I don't know all this stuff either. I'm still in the process of it, but that's the cool part, is because I want to openly talk about it and talk about my flaws and talk about my own personal mistakes that I've dealt with, and then how I've either looked at them differently and how my perspective has shifted on it compared to when I was in the situation compared to when I wasn't. And I hope it just gains insight for those of you who are also very confused with, well, where do you start with this? Where do you start with that? How do you do this? How do you, like, I'm by no means an expert on this, but I've at least started, and that counts for something, and I have learned bits of golden nuggets and bits of golden truth. Excuse me. The final point that I want to also build off from my own personal example is that I talked about in my last video about how I didn't have the courage to be able to stand up for what I believed in, which then led to the consequence of the pregnancy. And that really goes with, that's all about standing in your frame and standing in what you believe in, because that's what your frame is built as a masculine man. And we don't think about that. But if you think about it back then, if I would have stood in my frame, either the relationship would have ended right then and there, or it would have changed, or she would have been more submissive to my leadership, which could have then put her in the feminine energy. Because a lot of women don't know how to be, they want to be, but they don't know how to be submissive, or in the, like, submissive is a word that people don't really understand anymore, but to be in a state of mind to be able to be willing and do what the man is, and listen to his, excuse me, I keep getting hiccups, to listen to his dream and to listen to his vision and to follow his purpose. And the big reason on that is because men aren't standing in their frames, so women aren't able to actually then want to submit to people or submit to men. So if I would have been better on that, it could have gone a lot of different ways, and I don't try to obsess about it too much, but things definitely would have been different, and that's the key that I want to be able to bring out to you guys, and how it changes. And throughout your relationships, you will learn more and more about your masculinity, and you will learn more about that. I'm not saying don't date, but I do suggest building some type of frame so that you don't either get stuck with one woman for the rest of your life, for a woman that didn't ever grow with you as you started to grow, and you're just the same stagnant person that you were when you were so excited to get that one girlfriend because, oh my gosh, like, I finally have a girl that finally wants to be with me. Like, don't think out of scarcity. Don't have a scarcity mindset when you come to these ideas. And I'm trying to remember the second one. Crap. Oh yeah, so if you are then dating though, like, after you have built a frame, realize then that even for your first couple dates, or for then the women that you are going to start inviting, they might be the highest value of women that you want to have, but they're going to be more value based than the ones that you would have dated if you didn't have that. So those are my quick thoughts on it. Hope it made sense. If you have any questions or have any comments, please just drop a comment down below and leave a like and subscribe. And remember, don't be an airhead, be aware and ahead. Thanks, guys.